really excited for you all to join my session today and to be at the Signal-Based Marketing Summit, talking about a winning strategy based on buyer signals and expectations. My name is Allison Hafner. I'm the CMO at Trust Radius, and this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I think content marketing is so important, and meeting our buyers' expectations based on the signals that they are giving us is even more important. And so at Trust Radius, if you're not familiar, we're a buyer intelligence platform. So millions of buyers come to Trust Radius annually, and they're essentially reading reviews, looking at product information, and ultimately making a confident technology decision. And so we survey these buyers all the time to really understand what is it that they want when they're interacting with a vendor, when they're entering a sales cycle. And we also survey a lot of our vendors that we work with to understand what are their go-to-market strategies. We release a report every year called the B2B Buying Disconnect that essentially studies buyers' expectations and the way vendors go to market and the disconnects between the two in hopes of essentially bridging the gap. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of context to talk about what buyers actually want that's different in the buying experience today. And so I think a lot of people know what they don't want more than they probably know what they want. So starting here to give us that mindset of where buyers are, the number one thing that they want is pricing. They want transparent pricing, which makes a lot of sense. If you think about anywhere from an SMB to an enterprise purchase, you want to see if things are in your price range before you even ever start that process, knowing that we all have a very limited budget. And it's under more scrutiny than ever before. The other piece of this is that vendors would stop contacting them before they're ready to talk. So how do you know when a buyer is actually in market, and how do you make sure that you're top of mind when they're in market? And we'll kind of get into that later. The third thing is that they wish it was easy to talk to their peers that have actually used a product that they're researching. So I want to hear from my peers what they've been using, how they're using it, their feedback on it. And then next, they wish that someone could tell them the criteria and requirements that they should actually be evaluating this technology on. And then it goes on. Salespeople, they don't want them to be pushy. I think we've all experienced a pushy salesperson. And of course, ROI, right? Everybody is really interested in understanding what can I expect from this product and how is that really going to deliver value and improve my bottom line. So we kind of know what they don't want, but what's really their mindset? How are buyers making technology decisions? And so there's a lot of stats on here from our report, but I think the main takeaways here are that buyers want to self-serve important product information. They want to find all of this on their own. They don't want to interact with the salesperson until they're ready. And so how do you make that readily available? Also, buyers, their shortlist is getting even shorter, from 2 to 3 products. And usually they go with their first choice. And during their research process, it's really only to justify their first choice and bring the rest of the buying group along with a decision that they made when they were initially making their shortlist. So from your perspective, and when you're thinking about your content strategy, there's kind of a few goals that you need to think about. One is, how are you staying top of mind with passive buyers? And two, when they actually start making their shortlist, how do you make sure that you A, make the shortlist, and B, get chosen? So we'll kind of get into a little bit of that content strategy. But first, let's think about the resources that they're using. So we have looked at all different types of resources, and these have been in the top 5 for the last few years that we've done this report. Product demos. Now, these are not necessarily ran by the sales team, but something that they can self-serve, so an interactive demo. This is really, really valuable for buyers because they want to get all that under the hood information about a product before they actually have to engage with a salesperson. People are really relying on their own prior experience. They need to think about, okay, have I had previous success with this product? If the answer is yes, most likely they're going to take you with you in their next role. So it's really important to think about how you're making your customers successful So when they go to that next scroll, they take you with them. Next is user reviews. When you think about what we talked about earlier, where people want to hear from their peers, I want to talk to someone like me at a company like mine, the user reviews helps them do that at scale. You might not know a lot of people in your network that have used a previous product or able to contact them, etc. So user reviews helps that peer-to-peer kind of word-of-mouth marketing at scale. Your website's still very, very important. And of course, free trials, kind of going back to that under the hood and getting as much product exposure you can before making a purchase decision. So now we know kind of their mindset, the resources that they're using. So what are the signals that are really out there? Now, I've totally oversimplified this, but I think in our complex world, simplification is actually really nice. So content consumption, these are everything that's on and off your own proprietary properties. Website traffic, the time spent on your pages, reading reviews, the social interactions, email performances, etc. So there's a lot in here when I just think of like this really big bucket of content consumption. Second, search behavior, keywords, queries, like what do people or if the buyers in your target audience really want to read? What do they care about? What are the macro trends happening in your industry? And what are people searching? And then lastly, this falls more into the customer bucket, but I think it's really important because you're thinking about a full funnel marketing or content strategy is product usage, and support requests. How are customers using your product and finding success? Where are the gaps in your product? Or where are the gaps in maybe their knowledge to get the most out of your product? And how do you build a content strategy around that? So here are the signals. Like I said, definitely simplified, but I think in these three buckets, it helps put things in perspective. Next, what's the technology that you're going to use to identify those signals and ingest them, and then actually use them to power your content strategy and even think about the distribution, right? I think a big piece of content strategy is also your distribution strategy. So your analytics platforms, how are you identifying traffic sources, bounce rates, the consumption of your content, CRMs, marketing automation platforms, ABM platforms. How are you ingesting these signals and tying that to the buyer's journey within these systems? And then a big piece of this is alignment with your field team. You know, marketing is just one kind of piece of the puzzle, but I think you can have a really, really strong content strategy when you're super aligned with what buyer signals you're using, especially with your field team. Listening tools are really, really helpful when you think about what kind of content you need to create, what's going to be the subject matter that you cover. That's from social, your sales listening tools, really to track those brand mentions, the sales, what's going on in those sales conversations, what are the emerging trends over time. And this, for the fourth piece, is the content intelligence platform. And again, this is for more broader, that's maybe not proprietary to you, but beyond your kind of four walls. Again, thinking about the keywords and trending topics within your industry. This is going to be really, really important when you think about mind share and having a POV in the market, especially on macro trends that are happening in your industry. If you have to, if you think about some of your content and where there might be like a lot of gaps, I think thought leadership is probably one of the most anemic areas because it's really hard for people. So thinking about that, and we'll get into more of what those content types could look like. And then lastly, your buyer intelligence platform. How are you getting intent signals from buyers that are actually in market, that are actively researching you or your competitors? And so here's some of the tools that you have to think about either already in your tech stack or that you might think about adding to your tech stack. So how do you align now thinking about those signals, how you're ingesting them, managing them with your current tech stack, but how do you really align them to the buyer's journey? Again, I love simplification and everybody loves the rule of three. So you'll see that a lot. But in this funnel, and I know there's a lot of different funnels out there, but for the purposes of simplification and getting kind of to the point, your buyers are problem aware, most likely, right? They know that they have an issue, or there's obviously a few stages before this, like if they're not even aware that they have a problem. But the content could be kind of the same. And I think this is really at the industry and thought leadership level. So you're addressing some of the questions that are out there, like really amplifying the problem that are out there in your industry. And there's a lot of trends that are happening, whether you're in the IT space, the cybersecurity space, manufacturing, et cetera. What's going on, and how do you essentially have a POV on that, publish content on that? Because people are going to be reading your content, they want to hear from thought leaders. How are you also empowering your executive team and other maybe subject matter experts at your company to go out there and evangelize a lot of the messages and have a POV on the macro trends that are really complementary for your company? And that's really important at this kind of problem aware stage. Solution aware, they know that there's solutions out there, they're starting to become in market, but they just haven't chosen one yet. And they might not even know that you exist. However, if you did a really good job at problem aware stage and trying to gain that mind share, right? You're in the realm. And so buyers are starting to explore solutions in depthly. They're looking at case studies, comparison guides, user reviews, and social proof is really, really important. They want to see, again, their peers and how they've interacted with your product, the experience they had, the value that it drove for them. And so when you start to think about this stage, you're really thinking about, how do I give buyers the information that they want when they're actually in market and starting to do their research? And then lastly is product aware. So they know about you and they're considering you. So you probably have made the short list. They're reading your reviews, there's some RFP involved, sales is engaged, etc. So now they're looking at concrete reasons to choose you. Those testimonials, the product demos, pricing information are super key here. Objection handling playbooks, competitive takeouts, and again, going back to kind of like your customers and that social proof is really, really important. So at Trust Radius, we think about, we work with a lot of our customers, and you can kind of see this idea of how important customer voice is when it comes to the entire journey. And so we work with a lot of our customers when they're thinking about customer voice. So reviews are a great way to do this. Reviews are a way to capture customer voice at scale and make a lot of content from that. And any good content marketer knows out there that one piece of content should be at least 10 different pieces of content. So here's just like a high level example of how a review can manifest into multiple pieces of content. We have customers that take the reviews, they tag them for quotes, and then they embed those quotes on their website. Google actually crawls this, and it actually helps them from an SEO perspective to rank for more keywords and rank higher in SERP. We also work with our customers to take the reviews and create third-party validated content like competitive takeout, a piece of content that you see here, a customer story, a market report that helps give them more of that validation in terms of the claims that they're making about their product. If you're winning awards, if you're getting those quotes, you can add that into your ad creative, which really helps in terms of click-through rate. We see it even as simple as an email signature. Again, you're building that, you're using customer voice to really build that trust and validate what you're saying out in the market. So how does this look from a customer voice across the journey, across the buyer's journey, and how are you really building that trust in your content strategy? Thinking about the buyer signals that you're getting, so you know where they're at, like in market, and then what should you be doing about it? So if you think about your buyer that's just reading, again, that industry related content, this is the third party articles, the blogs, what's the latest trends, and use your customers to reinforce this. A lot of our customers, we have a customer advisory board, and they're truly advocates of Trust Radius. So how do we get their POV that's really complementary to Trust Radius out into the market? Let's start pitching them for bylines. Let's get them on a webinar series, LinkedIn Lives. Let's get them enabled on social, etc. your customer voice can really reinforce the industry message that you're putting out there. Next, if they're starting to, like, again, going into that problem, the solution aware, where they're looking at different products, this is where you want to make sure that you have a super solid SEO and SEM strategy to rank in searches. And it also includes your user review strategy and ungating important product information. And so I think that your buyers, if you look at the original stat that I showed at the beginning, they want to self-serve as much information as possible. So they're going to do a ton of research before they ever engage with you. So how do you make as much content, especially about your product, readily available so buyers can interact with it? And then also those signals, you can ingest those signals and inform your sales team, your marketing nurtures, etc. So they come to your website, which is a really positive, this is a really positive intent signal. It's your own first party signal that you get. And so when you think about your website and the content on your website, clear and concise messaging is about your product is so important. I see a lot of websites these days with a ton of jargon, talking a lot about outcomes, which I get that. But people are going to your website, they already know your product or they know the category of your product. They buy products, they don't buy outcomes. And so you want to make sure you have as much information about your product, again, kind of that under the hood look, as possible. Display pricing, incorporate that customer voice, like I said, where people take customer quotes, embed those, your customer testimonials. How do you put your customers front and center, especially on your website? So let's say you make the short list. This is, again, where customer proof is key, and that this is really the most influential when you think about how people want to interact with their peers and get that advice. And so making the shortlist and putting your customers front and center to help you get chosen is really important. Lastly, at this point, they're probably talking to sales, and we know that don't want to talk to you until they're ready. So based on buyer intelligence, who's actually in market for your sales to engage with? I think ROI metrics are really important here. You could even have ROI metrics on your website. And we know that that's important, and that's a deterrent if you don't have that for buyers. So really important to think about. And hopefully they become your customer. And I think that this is actually where the marketing doesn't stop. You definitely want to think about your post-sale strategy. You don't want to stop marketing to them when they're in the sales cycle, and especially when they become a customer, because you want them to become an advocate and you want them to feed this flywheel of really infusing customer voice into the buyer's journey at every stage. So if you build those advocates, they can really feed your program in terms of customer acquisition. All right, well, hopefully this helps you think about how you can ingest, what types of buyer signals are out there, how you can ingest them, the types of content to use at different stages during the buyer journey, and how you build trust and really leverage your customer voice. Thank you so much for your time and joining me. And if you have any questions or want to reach out, always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.